Hello, I'm back. Uh, Hold on a minute. There it is. All right, so I am on the internet. My connection's going bonkers again. Bonkers, binkers, bonkers, everything. Uh, I hate these glasses. Why? Because I think I know the people that made these glasses believe everybody does this. And a lot of people do. But they're good for reading books or maybe for typing. But when it comes to looking at mid-distance, they're messed up. Why is that? How did that get on there just now? Literally, just now. Anyway, why? Because the line, they're not, true bifocals are seamless. What do you call it? Whatever you call that, is too low. And in order for me to look at things on the screen, I have to tilt my head back so I can see out the bottom, which I don't like. And why do they have these on? Because I don't like them. I lost, misplaced, took the other one somewhere that I don't know where it's at right now, or where they're at, or where is it a they, a pair of glasses? Is it the? Is it they? I don't know where they are because there's two a pair joined, Siamese twins, they're a pair joined. This a pair of glasses. There's just one glasses, you know. Anyway, I don't like them. Those are my regular ones. But welcome to the Minutes with Milo show. Thursday night edition, as always. I'm going to be doing this a lot because I don't want you looking at my nose, okay? Uh, Tonight's show is sponsored by nobody. Not Bell Helicopters, not the prison system, nobody. Nobody is sponsoring this. It's just little old me doing something on a Thursday night and hoping that you will enjoy it. But on my Minutes with Milo X account, it used to be formerly Twitter, I follow it's not a person, is it a channel? I follow a provider. What do they call them on X? I follow a subject called Historic Vids. Okay? And I would show you this if this computer system would let me log into my X account. I don't know what it's done. I don't know what this computer's done to either make X mad or disable X, but I cannot log into it. It says suspicious login activity every time I do it on this computer. I can do it anywhere else. So anyway, in that channel, in that provider, whatever you call it, Historic Vids, they had a little story about a French lady. What was her name? His Nadine Vaujour. All right, and she secretly learned, and I say secretly, she learned to fly a helicopter under a false name, and then she flew it into a prison to help her husband escape. Now, is that not crazy? And this was like in 1986. 1986 this happened. I mean, I thought, dude, that's crazy. I mean, I wanted to fly helicopters. And when was that? Probably late 70s. Graduated. Yeah, probably 78, 79. Who could afford it, right? There wasn't a place around here that taught, helicopter pilots. You went to the military or you flew fixed wing and then you got into rotor wing. I mean, there wasn't anybody, you couldn't just go, this is France, I guess. Maybe they were ahead further than us. I don't know. But in 86. So I thought, do a little research on it and come to find out, France has kind of a history of these things. And I thought I would just dive into some of them, skim over them lightly like I normally do, and talk about how crazy it is to take a helicopter, fly it into a prison, and expect to get away with it. And they do. Or they did. They did get away with it. Garthog, what's up? And I just find that astounding and impressive all at the same time. So let's look at this first one. And I'm sorry, I've got to put these on because maybe I could do it this way. And so one eye can see. Anyway. All right, let me set this up so we can see it. There's that. Minimize me. Over here. Do that. All right. So I'm using Gemini again, and as you all know the story, I can't use X, I can't use Grok. All right. So Michael Bajor in 1986, can you read that? There he is. Bank robber was sprung from Paris's La Santé prison in a remarkable escape. His wife, Nadine, took helicopter pilot lessons specifically for the mission. She then rented a helicopter and picked her husband up from the prison's roof, where he had made his way by threatening guards with a fake pistol and painted nectarines disguised as grenades. Hey, Robert, what's going on? I mean, hello, people. Let's do, I'm not going to use Gemini for this. Let's just go regular internet. And get a little more detail, because this is the one that brought me to it. Okay? So he was a former thief and mobster, always chose to making a break for freedom over life behind bars. Adventure over a life of submission. He was spent 27 years in prison, 17 in solitary confinement. Wow. He escaped from prison 5 times. Well, that's pretty crazy. Let's see. They made a movie about it. Okay. Let's see what it says here. A French convict escaped from prison using grenades, sort of. All right, so this is the one we looked at before. Now this is on the lesserstories.com. Michael was a man who had things to do. Not nice things, maybe, but certainly things which were impeded by the fact in 1985 he was convicted of bank robbery and attempted murder and sentenced to 18 years in prison. So he wasn't a very nice fellow. Let me see if we can. Where's my. Bring it down, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. Uh-oh. That's 50%. Bring it up. That's 67%. That's a little better. All right. So maybe you can read along. Where were we? Sentenced to 18 years in prison. He wasn't overly concerned with that, though. Before he was even convicted, he had already been planning his escape. Every good prison break needs an outside associate. His wife, Nadine, wasn't afraid to roll up her sleeves and get into action. As soon as he was arrested, she began taking classes to obtain her license as a helicopter pilot. With that in mind, in the months leading up to the event, she became a regular customer of a helicopter rental company in southern Paris. The owner of the company noted that she showed up twice a month like clockwork, sometimes with a friend and sometimes alone. Renting a helicopter at the timely cost of 2,200 francs or $315 an hour, and Nadine exclusively paid in cash. In retrospect, a glaring red flag. Yes, a glaring red flag. Of course, this is what? Maybe not. I mean, you think it's 85, right? I'm thinking it's 1985. And I don't think credit cards were as prevalent back then as they are now. Why? One of the reasons I think interest rates on credit cards were in the 20%. Ask me how I know that. All right. Which the owner managed to steadfastly ignore for more than 5 months. Inside the walls of the prison, Michael had befriended a man named Pierre Hernandez, who was waiting trial on armed robbery charges. The two of them took every opportunity to examine the prison grounds, looking for the right place for a helicopter to land. After months of selective scouting, the problem became clear. There was no place that was going to be big enough to set one down and allow it to take off again. The plan was forced to undergo a few changes. So now, let's remember that she is a new pilot. All right, so she took lessons. She's a new pilot. She's renting a helicopter, and I assume just practicing landings and takeoffs, and flying it, getting, acquainted with it. But no like stunt flying, no professional, crazy military style, low level, in the dirt kind of flying. So at 10:30 a.m. on May 26, 1986, a helicopter flew low over the central Paris. Nadine ignored a hail of radio warnings and brought the machine to a hovering stop over the roof of one of the prison buildings. The warning over the guard's radios of a helicopter on the roof were eclipsed by a far more intense situation developing inside the walls. And eventually, Bonjour and Hernandez emerged from an access door and jogged unchallenged across the roof. The answer lies, there was a question supposedly in this little thing. Weren't the prison guards shooting at them and the helicopter? The answer in that lies minutes before the two men appeared on the roof. Even French prison guards aren't known to hold their fire during an attempted escape, especially one that involves a helicopter hanging out above their heads. Michael were well aware of this, having had several opportunities to study similar escapes. Helicopter escapes were bizarrely common in France in the later part of the 20th century. They knew that the guards would need a really compelling reason not to open fire, and the escapees made sure they had one. Hey, Robert. Or Garthog. You're talking about Garthog. Never mind. But I'll say hey. I said hey before. All right. So while the helicopter inexplicably hovered above the prison, the guards were far more focused on another report coming over the radio. 2 inmates had apparently managed to smuggle in a number of grenades and were now threatening to detonate them if they were approached. The grenades were, was later revealed, nectarines from the prison cafeteria, which were painted green. Bajur and Hernandez made a point to pause frequently as they made their way to the roof, meticulously waving their fistfuls of fruit at the pursuing officers. With the threat of explosives from the 2 men and the presumed threat of more explosives aboard the waiting helicopter, not a single shot was fired. Bajur scrambled up a line and grabbed the runner, eventually managing to swing himself inside. Hernandez, for some reasons unknown, changed his mind at the last moment and quietly surrendered to the authorities. The helicopter disappeared from view and the Bajurs were away. So Hernandez got cold feet. Why? Maybe he was more afraid of the riding the helicopter with the girl that just barely had her pilot's license than, taking his chances with the prison guards. The remainder of the escape was picture perfect. Nadine flew the helicopter to a nearby athletic field, and the pair disappeared into a waiting car. They remained at large for more than 4 months, even managed to pick up their 2 daughters from under the noses of police surveillance units. The breakout made headlines around the world as French police presumably forced to award Bajur some sort of gold star in absentee for successfully completing the 5th prison escape of his career. In a move that was destined to be either a stroke of genius or an act of pure unfiltered stupidity, the couple made their way to a prepared hideout in Paris. Why go, well, okay, so 2 schools of thought about this. Why go to a large city where there's plenty of cops and there's plenty of people, that's looking for you? The flip side of that is there's plenty of people to hide with. Okay? So pick your poison. You can become, a straw in a haystack, right? Where you just look like anybody else. Or you could go away and, try to hide in the mountains or in small towns where maybe people wouldn't recognize you. But, in 86, they had televisions most everywhere still, so faces on the news and all that. No internet. Remember that. No internet in 86. So just the news, just newspapers, that kind of stuff. So yeah, newspapers were still a thing. All right. Where was I? In Paris. Literally the same city in which they'd staged the prison break. 3 months later, they were apprehended by police in the early morning as they were opening up the coffee shop that they'd always dreamed of owning. They'd been living as model citizens, and the entire city was charmed by their folksy cover story. It's just kidding. Why do they do that to me? That was a lie. Actually, they were caught while robbing a bank for the second time in 3 days. Take a minute to appreciate the nerve required to break out of prison in the city, then rob 2 banks in that same city just 3 months later because you never even bothered to leave the city. In a shootout with police, Michael took a bullet to the head, which he somehow survived. 5 prisons couldn't hold the man. A little lead to the gray matter wasn't going to do the trick. After coming out of a weeks-long coma, he was tried and convicted and returned to a maximum security prison from which he never attempted escape. Right. Robert says, hide in plain sight until you try to rob a bank again. Okay? Of course he didn't know anything else. So One time he did attempt to escape because he's Michael Verjure, and of course he attempted to escape. He was aided in the attempt by a law student turned criminal mastermind named Jamila, who would eventually become his second wife. The escape attempt was Verjure's sixth overall attempt and the only one which was unsuccessful. Incredibly, in 2003, Michael Verjure was granted his freedom after 27 years in prison, having set a record for the largest sentence suspension in French history up until that point. Now 69 years old, he has since released an autobiography entitled Love Saved Me from Sinking. The book, though by no means a bestseller, has once again put Verjure's name in French headlines as he extols the virtues of patience, clean living, love, and of all things, yoga. So, that's very interesting. Let's see if we can find pictures of him. Huh. Looks like his face looks familiar, actually. Is this when he was out? Let's see. Here's Jamila, his second wife. Guess that's her there. That's the most common face. It's in French, so I don't know if that's actually her or not, because I don't read French, but I wish I could read the name of that book. Hmm. Again in French. Let's see if it's got any pictures of the escape. Oh, this looks like maybe the actual helicopter that was used. Hmm. Huh? What? Oh, come on, man. Can't we get rid of this? I don't know. I wish I could read French. That's the Cracker Barrel dude that got fired. Can you, Garthog, can you elaborate on that comment a little bit? I don't know what you're talking about right there. You might read. Oh, we're getting out of this. I hate things. There's an image. I bet you that is the real helicopter, because that would be an athletic field they land in. That's a pretty good sized helicopter. I mean, it really is. Poor dog, puppy dog's hot. Got his little tongue hanging out. Hmm. Well, that's Nadine there. I think they made a movie about that. Cracker Barrel just took the old man off their logo under new branding. Poor old dude don't have a job now. Huh. So that probably isn't a real picture. Let's see what this is. So that's her in the actual helicopter. Huh. That's pretty wild. There she is. I guess at the restaurant. I think those are actual pictures. I guess they were actual pictures. Huh. Well, that's pretty cool. I guess. So anyway, France has kind of a history, as I have discovered, of this. So I asked Gemini about some of them. So I was trying to get it to draw me pictures. So let's see, besides that one, it gave me two others. Pascal Payet, a career criminal, is perhaps most famous for his use of helicopters. He has orchestrated multiple escapes, both for himself and others. His method often involved hijacking a helicopter and forcing the pilot to land in the prison yard. One of his most daring escapes occurred in 2007 from a prison in Grosses, when masked men hijacked a helicopter and freed him from solitary confinement. So I could kind of see her plan, and he got up on the roof in the open. You know, he did a bunch of groundwork. She flew in. They timed it. How does this even happen? How do you plan it? You know, they've got to be reading the letters that they send out, listening to the conversations if they come and visit. All that has to be recorded, right? How could you ever plan that and get it and pull it off without being discovered? But anyway, I can kind of see they did it in the open where a helicopter can fly around. The man's not in solitary confinement. How do you get a helicopter to land close or in a prison and get somebody out of solitary confinement? Blows my mind. All right. And then this other one, Redon Fede, or Fayed, a notorious French gangster known for his armed robberies. Fede had escaped from prison twice. His most recent and well-known escape in 2018, a helicopter hijacked by armed accomplices landed in the courtyard of the prison, with men using angle grinders to cut through the doors to reach Fahad in the visiting room. The helicopter was later found burned in a nearby town. So, there again, they got out of the helicopter. They went in and broke into prison to break somebody out. I mean, if that's not, you know, movie quality stuff, I don't know what is. I mean, of course, the A-team would just put some explosive on the side of the wall, blow the wall out. The dude would come running out of his cell, jump into the helicopter, and they would fly off. You know, a kind of similar vein in some of these B westerns. You know, they'd go to the jail and hook a rope to the windows, the bars in the windows, and use the horse to pull the bars out. And then the dude would climb out the broken out window, get on his horse that they brought there, and then they would ride off. Same kind of principle, I guess, except they used an angle grinder instead of a rope to get him out. So the French authorities have implemented new security measures to have anti-helicopter cables and nets over in prison yards to prevent future airborne getaways. Why don't they just shoot the things out of the sky when they come landing? Yeah, makes Alcatraz look easy, right? I mean, swimming in the cold, is there shark-infested waters there? I mean, is that another thing I remember improperly? Is there sharks in the... I guess Alcatraz is in a bay, right? In a channel. For some reason I was thinking somewhere it was, strong currents, frigid waters, and sharks. Maybe I'm all wrong on the sharks. San Francisco Bay. Is there sharks there? Is there? Let's ask Jiminy. Are there sharks around Alcatraz? Okay. Sorry. Yes, there are sharks around Alcatraz, but the popular myth of man-eating shark-infested waters that the prison guards helped perpetuate is largely exaggerated. The real dangers for prisoners attempting to escape were the frigid water, strong currents, and distance to shore. The San Francisco Bay is home to several species of sharks that are generally not a threat to humans. The most common are the leopard shark, which are typically 2 to 3 feet long and eat small fish and crustaceans. Other species include seven-gill sharks and brown smoothhounds. These sharks are common residents of the bay and typically stick to the bottom. Great white sharks are common along California coast and near the Fallen Islands, about 27 miles offshore. They are very rare visitors to the San Francisco Bay itself. They prefer the deeper, clearer, and colder waters of the open ocean, where the primary prey, seals and seal lions, are more abundant. Documented encounters. There have been at least one confirmed, publicly documented instance of a great white shark attack on a sea lion just off Alcatraz Island. The event, which happened in 2015, garnered significant media attention precisely because it was so rare. There have been no confirmed reports of great white shark attacks on human swimmers inside the Golden Gate in over 150 years. Yeah, even in Boone Lake, percentages of low are for sharks, but never zero. Yeah. So there are sharks, but the biggest thing, like it said, was cold waters and currents and the distance you had to swim. All right, so then I asked Gemini more examples of prison breaks with helicopters. In 1973, three provisional Irish Republic Army fellows escaped from Mountjoy prison in Dublin. An IRA member hijacked a helicopter and forced the pilot to land in the prison's exercise yard, allowing free prisoners to board and fly away. Always like stuff from Ireland. Mountjoy prison helicopter escape occurred on 31st of October 1973. So Halloween. So there were three IRA volunteers escaped from the Mountjoy prison in Dublin, Ireland by boarding a hijacked helicopter that briefly landed in the prison's exercise yard. I want to call it the escape yard. The escape made headlines around the world. It was an embarrassment to the Irish coalition government of the time, led by Fine Gaels. A manhunt involving 20,000 members of the Irish Defence Forces was launched for the escapees, one of whom, Sesmond Tuomi, was not recaptured until December 1977, so he was out for about 4 years. Following the outbreak of the Troubles in the late 60s, the IRA had conducted an armed campaign that sought to create United Ireland by ending Northern Ireland's status as part of the United Kingdom. Increasing violence, 71, Republic of Ireland coalition government, blah, blah, blah. So after these guys were caught, they immediately made plans to break Tuomi, O'Hangan, and Milan out of prison. The first attempt involved explosives, A-team style, that had been smuggled into the prison, which were used to blow a hole in the door, which would give the prisoners access to the exercise yard. From there, they would scale a rope ladder thrown over the interior wall by a member of the IRA Dublin Brigade, who would have a getaway car waiting to complete the escape. The plan failed when the prisoners could not gain access to the exercise yard and the rope ladder was spotted. So the IRA began making new escape plans. The idea of using a helicopter in an escape had been discussed before. The idea to break these other people had been ruled out because of the faster, more sophisticated British Army helicopters being stationed nearby. Blah, 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 blah. Leonard arrived at Irish helicopters on 31st October and was introduced to the pilot of the helicopter. Boys was instructed to fly to a field in Stradbally in order to pick up Leonard's photographic equipment. After landing, Boys saw two armed masked men approach the helicopter from nearby trees. He's held at gunpoint, told he would not be harmed if he followed the instructions. So that's when he flew the thing. And he tried to do that escape. So there was that one. In Perry Correctional Institute, United States, 1985, a woman hijacked a charter helicopter and forced it to land within the perimeter of a South Carolina prison. 3 inmates, a murderer and 2 armed robbers, boarded the helicopter and escaped. Uh-oh. I didn't mean to copy the title of that. I just thought that was funny. This helicopter prison escapes, Wikipedia free encyclopedia. See what they say. Nope, 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 nope. Here we go. December 19th, 1985. Fled helicopter piloted by a woman in a getaway car 5 miles away. Wasn't much of a story. No such website. There was one in 2009 in Greece. A Greek bank robber and his accomplice escaped from a high-security prison by helicopter, not once but twice. On their second escape, a helicopter landed on the prison's roof and the 2 men climbed aboard as bullets were fired at them. There you go. They were never recaptured after the second escape. All right. And then in Mexico in 1971, a New York businessman named Joel David Kaplan, who was serving a sentence for murder, escaped from New York or Mexican prison. A helicopter disguised to look like one belonging to the Mexican Attorney General landed in the prison yard and rescued Kaplan and a fellow inmate. Now that was pretty smart. They camouflaged it. To make it look like an important helicopter. So it's crazy in my book. I mean, I guess crazy like a fox, right? To try to escape, prison. But how do they coordinate these things? I still don't understand how they coordinate these helicopter escapes. I mean, you got to have outside help. No way, no two ways about that. There ain't no way to do it on your own because you're in prison, right? You can't fly a helicopter. So let's see if Gemini says how many people have dug their way out of prison. Because that seems like you could just work on that. Like, it wasn't a Green Mile. What was that other one? The other movie where the guy had his little rock pick and it caped into the walls and got out. Yeah, Shawshank Redemption. All right. It's impossible to provide an exact number of how many people have dug their way out of prison. A number of famous and successful cases have been documented throughout history. Digging a tunnel is one of the most difficult and time-consuming methods of escape, making it a dramatic but rare form of jailbreak. A helicopter escape's not dramatic. Apparently it's not rare. All right, so in 1944, the Great Escape, famous escape from the German prisoner of war camp, Stalag Lufa III, involved hundreds of Allied airmen. They meticulously dug 3 tunnels named Tom, Dick, and Harry over many months. While the escape was not fully successful as planned, 76 men got through the Harry Tunnel. The escape from Alcatraz in 1962. Though technically not a tunnel, this escape from Alcatraz Alcatraz prison involved inmates Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin. They used improvised tools, including spoons, to bore through the deteriorating concrete walls of their cells to access the utility corridor. From there, they made it to the rooftop and then to the water, where they disappeared on a makeshift raft. So in 2021, 6 Palestinian inmates in Israel's Gilboa prison escaped by digging a tunnel from their cell's bathroom floor, which they reportedly started with a spoon. The men used an old drainage system and then tunneled to an external road. 5 of the escapees were recaptured shortly after, but the escape itself was a major embarrassment to the Israel Prison Service. Old drainage system. Started out in the bathroom floor. I guess, it's the only way out to the poop chute. You gotta get it. You gotta go. Gotta take that chance. The wooden horse escape in 1943. From a German POW camp in Nazi-occupied Germany, British officers dug a tunnel hidden under a large wooden vaulting horse. The horse was taken out to the exercise yard each day, with a small group of prisoners inside digging the tunnel while others exercised on and around it to provide cover. That doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Let's read that again. The wooden horse escape. From a German POW camp in Nazi-occupied Germany, British officers dug a tunnel hidden under a large wooden vaulting horse. The horse was taken out to the exercise yard each day, with a small group of prisoners inside digging in the tunnel while others exercised on and around it to provide cover. El Chapo escaped 2015 through a tunnel he dug in his cell. Let's see if he's in here. Eastern State Penitentiary, 1945, a group of 12 prisoners led by bank robber Willie Sutton dug a 100-foot long tunnel over months using spoons and cans. They even had lights and scaffolding. While the escape was initially successful, all 12 men were recaptured within a few hours or months. Huh. I don't care if you don't like my ad blocker. How 12 convicts escaped by tunnel from Eastern Penitentiary. Diagram of the tunnel published in the Philadelphia Inquirer, April 3rd, 1945. Philadelphia Inquirer via Eastern. Well, I'll have to give the artist credit. That's really good. But I can't see it. I can't see where it's not the whole. Open the image in a new tab. It doesn't show the whole thing. That's stupid. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Check out the dude's shirt. Willie Sutton. Alright. There's another dude. Huh. The entry to the escape tunnel excavated by a team of archaeologists and researchers in 2025. Working in two-man teams for 30-minute shifts, the tunnel crew, using spoons and a flattened can as shovels and picks, slowly dug a 31-inch opening through the wall of cell 68, then dug 12 feet straight down to the ground and another 100 feet out beyond the walls of the prison. They removed dirt by concealing it in their pockets and scattering it in the yard as in the Great Escape. Also like the Great Escape, the ESP tunnel was shored up with scaffolding, illuminated, and even ventilated. At about the halfway point, it linked up with the prison's brick sewer system, and the crew created an operable connection between the two pipelines to deposit their waste while ensuring that noxious fumes were kept out of the tunnel. It was an impressive work of subversive subterranean engineering, the likes of which can only emerge from desperation. As a testament to either clever design or the ineptitude of the guards, the tunnel escaped inspection several times thanks to a false panel cleanly treated to match the plaster walls of the cell and concealed by a metal wastebasket. After months of painfully slow labor, the tunnel was ready. On the morning of April 3rd, 1945, the dirtier dozen made their escape, sneaking off to cell 68 on the way to breakfast. Two of the escapees, including Sutton, are returned to Eastern after their minutes of freedom. Come on, man. Minutes of freedom. Like most designers, Cleany and Company found that the work far outweighed the reward. After all that designing, carving, digging, and building, Kinley made it a whole 3 hours before getting caught, but that was better than Sutton, who was free for only about 3 minutes. By the end of the day, half the escapees were returned to prison, while the rest were caught within a couple of months. Sutton recalls the escape attempt in Where the Money Was. One by one, the men lowered themselves to the tunnel and on hands and knees crept the 120 feet to its end. The remaining 2 feet of earth were scraped away, and men rumbled from the hole to scurry in all directions. I leapt from the hole, began to run, and came face to face with 2 policemen. They stood for a moment, paralyzed with amazement. I was soaked and wet, my face was covered with mud. Put your hands up or I'll shoot, one of them recovered more quickly than the other. Go ahead and shoot, I snarled at them, and at that moment I honestly hoped he would. Then I wheeled and began to run. He emptied his gun at me, but I wasn't hit. None of the bullets hit me, but they did make me swerve, and in swerving I tripped and fell, and they had me. Yeah, there you go. Those were the good days. When was it they did this? In the 40s? 34. So in 34, policemen just pulled that thing out and, fired off 6 shots at you just because he could. Must have had crazy bullets because he couldn't hit him running away, which seems kind of pointless. I don't guess they made officers take, you know, shooting lessons or anything. Hmm. The first few escapees to be captured, Sutton among them, were put in the Klondikes, illegal, completely dark, solitary confinement cells, secretly built by guards in the mechanical space below one of the cell blocks. These spaces are miserable, tiny holes that weren't big enough to stand up or wide enough to lie down. Sutton was eventually transferred to the escape-proof Holmesburg prison, from which he promptly escaped and managed to avoid the law for 6 years. Police eventually caught up with him in Brooklyn after a witness saw him on the subway and recognized his mug from the wanted poster. The map of the 1945 tunnel made by guard Cecil Ingley. In his larger-than-life account of the escape, Sutton claimed the tunnel went 30 feet down. I knew that the prison wall itself extended 25 feet beneath the surface of the ground, and it was 14 feet thick at the base. Clearly, that wasn't the case. As for the tunnel, after it was analyzed and mapped, guards filled it with sand, covered it with cement. Though it may have been erased from the prison, its legendary likely inspired inmate until Eastern State Penitentiary was closed in 1971, and despite the failure of the escapees, the tunnel has continued to intrigue the public. Huh. The location of the tunnel was lost until 2025 when the Eastern State Penitentiary, now a nonprofit dedicated to preserving the landmark prison, completed an archaeological survey to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the escape. To find the tunnel, the prison escape preservationists created a search grid over the prison grounds near the entrance, the location of which was known from old photos. Using ground-penetrating radar, the team was able to create vertical sections through the site in increments corresponding to the suspected width of the tunnel. After a couple failed attempts, the archaeologists detected a section of tunnel that hadn't collapsed and hadn't been filled in by the guards. The following year, a robotic rover was sent through the tunnel, documenting the scaffolding and lighting systems. While no major discoveries were made, curiosity was sated, and the public's imagination was newly ignited by the stories of prisons and its inmates. I think that's pretty interesting. That's more interesting than a helicopter, I think. You know, you're going to do a prison break, let's dig us a tunnel. And how would he know that the wall went down like 20 feet? And why would he think it was 14 feet wide at its base when it wasn't? According to this, it was 8 feet wide at its base. Huh. All right. Well, that's interesting. So, if you're ever in prison, look for helicopters. Apparently, helicopters are the way to go. Of course, getting in prison is probably not getting in prison is probably your best bet of staying out of prison, in my book. That's just me. That's just me. Could be, somebody else has a different idea. But don't go to prison. You don't have to worry about, failed escape attempts. My camera picture. There, that's better. All right, so helicopters apparently are not as uncommon as I thought they would be. I mean, if you sit down and think about it, which I didn't before, started the show, I guess that's probably the best way, really. Unless sneaking out would be good. Trying to hide in a laundry truck or, you know, get into some kind of vehicle that was leaving, you get in, stow away underneath a laundry truck or in a barrel of, dirty clothes or something. I mean, sneaking out is almost impossible because there's guards everywhere. All the doors are locked. You can't get out, by yourself and run around. But coordinating, I'm still on the coordination of a helicopter coming to get you. I don't. Of course, with any prison escape, you're going to need help. Then who can you trust? You're in prison with a bunch of liars, cheats, thieves, and no good doers. So, who can you trust? Somebody, wanting an extra pack of smokes or something like that, turn you into the guards and say, dude's planning an escape and I need some extra canteen money. Hook a fella up. So, can't trust anybody. No honor among thieves. But anyway, prison escape is still a thing. Helicopters can be used. Explosives, apparently. Digging tunnels is still a way, potentially. And most prisons are old. They're not making a bunch of new ones. And, even with local jails, they contract these things to the lowest bidder. They're probably using, substandard materials to save money. It's usually not a brand new build, so they're retrofitting certain areas, which then leaves, potential dead spaces in walls or flooring or ceiling or, whatever it might be. And, the guy drawing up the plans to have it, escape proof, is he an escape artist? Or, can he think of all the possibilities? That's I guess what I'm getting at. To cover all the bases to make sure that, nobody can escape. They're going to try, but can they escape? So anyway, that's Thursday night show. I think it's interesting. We try to learn something. I try to learn something every time, and I just never would have thought the helicopters and prison escapes were such mainstream ways of escaping from prison. I would think sneaking out some way. Getting hold of a guard uniform, doing something, like that, getting trustee status, going out, not coming back, something. And maybe they are. Maybe they are. I didn't look at that. That's probably a good point. I looked at helicopters and that's what they showed me. So, it's too late. I'm not going to go back and look to see which the main, what's the main avenue of escape from a prison. I'm just not going to do it. All right, everybody. Garthog, Roberto, appreciate you coming by. If you made it this far, you're not a subscriber, subscribe to the channel. Leave me a comment. Tell your friends and neighbors. Tune in Thursdays. Gonna do another show. I don't know, next week I might be going to the what is that? Foot brake champion contest, whatever. Bristol Dragway. That thing's like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's like 4 days. I want to try to get to that. It looks like it's really big. They pay pretty good money to win. And there's, foot brake. There's no delay boxes. There's no electronics on the starting line to help the driver. I think they all just foot brake. I don't even think they use trans brakes. It's kind of hard to get the rules. If you look it up, it's World Foot Brake Championship or Champions or something like that. It's going to be in Bristol a week from today, starting a week from today. And I think it's only like, if I read it correctly, it's only like $10 to get in and watch this thing. And it starts at 8 o'clock in the morning for the drivers and all that stuff. I mean, one day, it started at 1. I think the first day it starts at 1. Drag racing starts at 1. But anyway, probably going to go to that. I've been trying to get there. I don't know if I'll go Thursday or some other time. But, if I decide to go Thursday, then there won't be a show. And hopefully I'll remember to tell everybody that there's not going to be a show. But anyway, that was the show for tonight. And like I said, appreciate you coming. Appreciate you staying. Let's see, stop streaming. There's the button.